Welcome to the Dish on Divorce. I'm Leanne Townsend.
And I'm Jennifer Barkin.
And today's guest is someone who I'm really excited to have on. Her name is Kim Basler. And Kim has a business, a coaching business that focuses on helping people who, with their mindset in particular, I think towards their body and learning to love their body and, not equating self-worth and self-esteem with the size of your body. And I love her message, so I'm so grateful that she's here today. So thank you, Kim, for coming on.
Thanks, Leanne. Hi, Jennifer. I'm so happy to be here. We're going to have a great conversation for sure.
Glad you're here. Why don't you start
Thank
by
you.
telling listeners a little bit about the work you do and the name of your business and how it came to be the work that you're doing?
Yeah, thank you. So I call myself a food freedom and mindset coach. I had initially called myself an eating psychology coach, but the way this all came to be, it wasn't something that I went out and pursued. I had struggled with my body and with dieting since I was 12 years old. So I went on my first diet at 12. I grew up in a home where there was a lot of dieting going on. And I think, like many women, we look around, we see what other women are doing, we start to find flaws in our bodies, and then we think that if we change our body, we're going to feel happier about ourselves. So I went on that path at the age of 12. And of course, I dieted until I was 41 years old. And it wasn't even just dieting. I struggled with an eating disorder through high school with restriction. I also purged, and I also had a lot of obsession with exercise. I actually got into the industry of exercise at the age of 16 and became an instructor at 16. So all of this was going on, my fight with my body and trying to make my body be what I thought it needed to be while I was working in the industry of fitness. And so these were all my little secrets that I held on to, and I could hide. That's the thing about the health and fitness industry is, you're praised for how much you exercise and you're praised for how your body looks. But meanwhile, I also had that secret behind me. And the more I was praised about my body, the more I believed it needed to look that way in order for myself to be accepted. And it got to a point in 2016 where all of these pressures that I had about myself also had started to impact my life. I was working in corporate with a large fitness company chain here in Canada, and I was struggling with perfectionism and people pleasing and just trying to be all the things. And on top of it, I was a mother to 2 small children, and I am a wife. And it got to a point where my mental health was suffering, my physical health was suffering, and everything was starting to break down. And I didn't choose to leave my career, but that's what happened because thankfully I was, as I like to call it, my soul whispers came up and said, whoa, this is not what your life is supposed to look like anymore. And that was in 2016. And I left my career, and it got harder before it got easier. As I spent the entire year of 2017, I attended a school out of Colorado where I learned about eating psychology and mind body nutrition, looking at emotional eating, binge eating, stress eating, body image, all of these things. But at the same time, I worked on myself for that entire year and really dug deep and unpacked all of the stuff that, was part of my life, my whole life of self-acceptance and chasing all the titles and doing all the things, thinking that I was going to make it. And I found myself another path, and I am now here helping women, speaking on this, really helping women claim back their version of health that's for them. I want to take away the attention that is put on the body, that health is based on a size. There's platforms that I've learned about since I've come down this path, Health at Every Size, which is recognizing that health is not a size. There's health that is in large-bodied women, and that thin-bodied women, small-bodied women are not always healthy. So we have to take that pressure off the body size, and also looking at reclaiming our power to be able to have fun with food again, feel relaxed around food again, and let food bring pleasure again. So I am all about shifting the mindset, working on self-love, and helping women just take back their power.
I think that's such an amazing message, and bringing it to for the listeners of the show who are with it being a show about for people who are going through divorce, and so often women, I'm sure men, this happens with men as well, but I'm going to, because I'm a woman, I relate to the women. They come out of a marriage and, maybe they were cheated on, maybe they were abused and told how awful they are and how they come out feeling low self-esteem and worthless. And then, they go out potentially into the dating pond and, everyone, it's just swipe, swipe, swipe. It's just how you look. It's what your photo looks like, and your appearance matters. And it's very easy to get caught up in this whole thing where you equate your self-worth with the number on the scale. And I know, like, I struggle with that myself at times. Like, I find if I feel like I've gained weight, I just don't feel good about myself. And
Mhm.
it's a deeply seated issue. So how do you help women overcome that sort of mindset?
Well, and I mean, it all comes down to a lot of, because we all have different stories, right, on where this started from. For some of us, it could just be that one relationship where this stemmed from. And for the rest of us, it also could be things from our childhood and how we grew up. So I think the first thing that we have to recognize is just to allow ourselves to feel the feelings. I'm a big advocate for having compassion for ourselves and taking ownership for the thoughts that are in our heads. And so if you're constantly bashing yourself and telling yourself how horrible you are, that's exactly how you're going to feel. But if we can recognize that I might not be where I want to be right now, I might not be feeling the greatest about my body right now, but I'm still going to have compassion for myself and recognize that I'm doing the best I can and that there is always an opportunity to do more things for myself today that help me feel better. So for me, I'm just going to say a few things. First of all, I mean, we have to recognize what are the things that are happening in our life right now that are causing us to feel less than. So are we choosing potentially to use a scale to dictate our happiness or our worth? For some people, the scale is okay. Like, they're able to get on a scale once a week. It's just a number for them and they can, move forward in their day. But for some of us, it was my story. It took my happiness from me and it made me feel horrible about myself. So recognize if you're doing things like that, or maybe you're spending tons and tons of time weighing out your food, measuring out your food, trying to get this body that you think you need to have in order for you to feel happy about yourself. But it's just stealing all of your joy and it's causing you to really feel crazy almost in your head around all those numbers and whether or not you're getting your calories right, whether you're getting your macros right, putting all your numbers into MyFitnessPal. I mean, this is the reality and it's stealing our joy. Now, the other thing I want to say, and there's a lot of things I could say on this, but who are you spending your time with? Who are the friends in your life that you are talking with? Who are you following on social media? Because if you're constantly following the people that are telling you that your body's not good enough in some way or another, or you spend time with your girlfriends and you're all talking about how horrible your bodies are and about the new fad diet that you're going to try, even though you know it's going to cause you to gain and lose that same weight over and over and over, these are the things that we have to start to take ownership on. The other thing I want to say is we have to recognize that even if your body, like, this is the thing about body image, girls, is that body image isn't something that's just you're going to like wake up one day and you're going to love your body for the rest of your life. That's not how it works. Body image is saying that I'm going to love myself regardless. I recognize the things about my body that I love. And I also see the parts about my body that I might not love, but I know that as a person and as a woman, I am whole just the way I am. And I mean, we're not going to go from body hatred to body love overnight. And we might never get to body love, but we can get to body respect. That I'm not going to stand in the mirror all day long, picking my body apart, putting on one pair of pants and on another pair of pants, and just trying to find the body that is going to be accepted in the world. These are the things that we have to take our power back. And we have to find women who are here to support us and remind us that we are so much more than our bodies.
I think people have to know also that a lot of what you see on social media, it's not a realistic depiction. That even these people that you're admiring, they don't look like that. They're photoshopped. Maybe if they're a celebrity, they have a trainer and they train for 3 hours a day. And if you're a working mother, you cannot do that. You don't have the time. You don't have the finances for that. But scientifically, and I studied eating disorders when I was in school, what people don't know is everybody's body, you have something called a set point weight, and that is your natural weight. So if you're eating properly, right, like the right amount of calories for your height, for your weight, for your age, you're not going to be that supermodel social media skinny. So you might be 5'4" and 150 pounds, and that's your normal set point weight. So if you want to get to that 5'4", 105 pounds, you're going to have to starve yourself to be. And it's a hard thing to give up food. Food has to do with holidays and family and socializing. It's not like drugs and alcohol, which still have some taboo around them.
Or you can cut them out completely, whereas you can't cut out food. You have to eat.
Right.
Totally.
And you need food for energy to get out of bed, to survive, to thrive, to think, to function. So you can't just give up food and be productive and be happy and healthy. But with this set point weight, unless you're going to starve your body, this is what's going to happen. And then the problem gets worse. If you starve your body starts to believe that, guess what, I may never have food again. So this is when you see, and you see this in anorexic treatment, it's very difficult. The minute you start feeding a body normally, the normal amount of fat grams, calories for your, your age and your weight, your body packs on these pounds.
Because it thinks it's in starvation mode too, so it holds on to the fat.
Like a polar bear in hibernation, and you gain more and more and more. And unfortunately, the diet and fitness industry has preyed on this, and that's why one of the reasons that you're seeing why it's such a gazillion-dollar industry. It's because, you'll be able to take off this weight, but you're going to get bigger and bigger and bigger, and you're going to be like a hamster on a wheel.
Totally. And you've brought up, I'm so glad, and you very much know what you're talking about. The set point is the real deal. And the more we diet, the more we restrict and go on that back and forth, that set point number rises. I mean, I knew my weight so much that I can remember being 162 pounds. I sat at 162 very easily. But then I got greedy. Then I got down to 151. And then I was getting married, and I wanted to get even lighter when I was getting married. So then I went on another program where I was barely eating, and I was drinking 2 shakes a day. I won't say any more than that. I was drinking my 2 shakes a day and getting my 1 meal, and I got down to 143. But it's not sustainable, and it is taking the pleasure out of food. And then we, deal with stress, and then all the foods that we have not allowed ourselves to have, we're going to want those back again, and then we binge on them, and the cycle continues. And that set point number rises and rises and rises. And this is the thing, we have to recognize that all of our bodies have their own unique size and shape based on our parents and their parents and so forth. And we have to be able to recognize that beauty and body and our looks, they come in all different sizes. And this is what we have to focus on. Absolutely.
So, I mean, it's hard. Like, I'm a educated person. I'm mindful of, lots of things. And I agree totally with your message. But I think the reality to me is that what social media, what the media, and what society are telling us every single day is that the worst thing you could possibly be is a fat woman. Like like it's okay to discriminate against fat people. We can't discriminate against anyone else for anything. It's that's taboo, and that's not being politically correct. But being fat is like the last area left where people can discriminate. They can think you're lazy. They can think you're not disciplined, unattractive, and that is still the message that's being put out every day by the media on even on social media. I find people who are body positive, they get a lot of negative comments below them on their posts, and and it's there's that balance too, because obviously like being obese is not healthy. So if somebody's obese, like really obese, and they're putting out a body positivity message, I mean, if you're obese, you should still love yourself, of course. Like you shouldn't not love yourself. But I think people, like society, is like confusing sort of the body positivity message with with being that you're saying maybe any weight is healthy, and there's just like so much surrounding this. But the bottom line is, I feel the message that comes at me constantly is that the worst possible thing you could be as a woman is fat. And I hate
Yeah.
that
And
word, but I'm using it because that's what's used.
well, and you know what? I purposely try to use that word because I'm trying to take the stigma off that word. I mean, I know what you're saying, Leanne. This was my whole life. And even especially working in the fitness industry and being a personal trainer, this is what I did and helping people lose the weight and doing all the things. But I want to use that word because I want to take the shame off of it, because not all of our bodies are ever going to be thin. We're not designed that way. I forced my body to be that way, but I was not healthy at that size. So that's why platforms like Health at Every Size have come about, to recognize it. I do want to say, though, I do agree. I mean, there's a lot of opinions around the work that I do. We all have different opinions. I do agree with you that when we get larger and larger in our bodies, it is going to impact our health on some level. It will. It's not this. I mean, you can have some people that live in fat bodies, until the day they die, and they'll never get diabetes. But we're told that if we're in a fat body, we're going to get diabetes. That's not the case. But we are going to be impacted on some level, whether it be our ability to run and play and get up and down off the ground or climb the stairs or anything like that. These are active, daily acts of living that our bodies have to work harder to do if they are larger, right? But what I want to make sure that we recognize is that we don't have to pursue these smaller bodies in order for us to be healthier and happier. Like, I have to say it because I know in myself and in my own body, I am at my healthiest. Because what are we looking at health as? If we just look at health from a physical body, that's one thing. But I didn't sleep. Like, I could not sleep anymore. My body was full of hives because I was pressuring myself constantly to keep up with all the demands, the 2 hours of exercise a day, the restricting of calories, all of these things on top of life impacted my health, my happiness, my marriage, all of it. And so if I look at health holistically, that's why I'm not attached to the number anymore. I just am not. I'm going to focus on my health. I want people to focus on their health, whatever that looks like for them. But we have to stop judging other people on their sizes.
Well, it's interesting because the modeling industry is supposedly filled with young women who all they do is smoke, which suppresses appetite, and drinking Diet Coke like that. You hear stories that these girls don't eat; they just smoke and drink Diet Coke, and are the epitome of not healthy. But yet they're held out again as the standard of health wise how we're supposed to look.
As a goal. I think it's important though, that parents, because I know children, they watch what you do, right? So teaching this message to your kids is so vital. I remember as a little girl, we belonged to a country club, and all of the very thin women were eating half a cantaloupe, and in the middle of the cantaloupe was a scoop of cottage cheese. So today people would probably say, well, don't have the cantaloupe because it has some sugar. But I grew up watching these women really starving themselves while I'm having French fries and cheeseburgers. But if you wanted to be like this woman, this is what you had to eat. You had to deprive yourself. And I think that going now, so many years later, that I still see when mothers or fathers are packing lunches for their kids, no, you can't have this, you can't have this, you can't have this. So the message that you're getting is you're not going to be good enough. You could get heavy. And this is what the children are learning. And I think it's very dangerous.
For sure.
It's extremely dangerous. I'm seeing it firsthand. I lived it. I grew up with it, and I'm seeing it firsthand. I've worked with clients as young as 14 years old, and parents are trying so hard to raise their children to be healthy. Unfortunately, there is a lot of negative pressure about sugar and how bad sugar is. And it's causing kids to not, parents are eliminating any types of sugar in the house. They're making it labeled as bad. So what's happening is the kids are now sneaking those foods. They're hiding them in their bedrooms. They're stashing the wrappers, in little drawers in their bedroom. Like, this is happening. And so that's why I say to the parents, like, I recognize you want your children to be healthy. I recognize that you have fears that your daughter who's in grade 4 is being bullied for her size, and you think that making her smaller is going to help her feel more accepted in school. But what you're doing is not. What we have to recognize is that child, first of all, has to feel like food is just real. Food is just food. Food is food. Some of it's more healthier than others, absolutely. But a lot of the time with our young kids, they're using the food as some type of support. I mean, let's face it, right now we're in a pandemic. They don't see their friends. They're living online. They're missing these outlets. And food, especially sugar, it does make us feel good. So maybe instead of just saying, don't eat sugar, you can't have sugar, maybe we start talking with our kids a little bit more and sympathizing and feeling their feelings with them and letting them have some sugar, but not that it's being, hidden in their bedroom and they're binging on it and all of these unsafe habits that are happening.
I had that problem with my own children. We are a two-parent family, a two-parent household. And when they were young and they went to the other household, um, step parent had made a chart that was foods that are good and foods that are bad. And I had a little discussion that we can't do that because in my household, it was there was no good and there was no bad. I never even said that vegetables were good. I would make everything good. So carrots were good for your eyes and milk was good for your bones and, chocolate was good because it tastes good. But everything in moderation and everything balanced, but no good or bad and no food as reward.
When moderation, I think, is a good word because I'm a firm believer that most things in moderation are fine. And restricting kids from sugar, you're just making it more attractive to them. But the flip side is like I grew up in a situation where like a treat, like a reward might be that you get a cupcake, you got a good report card, and so you get a cupcake or that sort of thing. And so I found sometimes with my own kids, like I could see myself falling into that pattern where as a special treat I'm going to our favorite bakery and picking stuff up, and I'm associating like those kind of foods as a reward, which is not the best message either.
Yeah, and I mean, we don't want to be walking around on tiptoes as parents, worried about everything that we're going to do, right? But I think that we have to just know that it's okay to have, a cupcake, even if your child didn't finish their plate of food. Like this is the other thing I want to bring up is this finishing our plates, recognizing that we all have different appetites. Some of our kids are going to be fine eating 3 meals a day. Some of them might want to eat 5 small meals a day. Like we have to recognize their habits. But I hear you. The celebration is one thing. The punishment is another. You can't have this because you didn't do that. All of this stuff it plays a role. I see it with my clients when we recognize. I had one person that I was working with that has memories that there was no food allowed in her house that was bad food. So when she went to her friends, where food was just food at her friends, it was like you have what you want. It didn't have the power that it has when it's forbidden. And she would go over there and she just would go crazy at that at her friend's house because it wasn't available at home. And this is how it starts to, show up and manifest for you as you get older. If you look back on your habits, what it was like growing up, we all have the memories.
And parents still, I remember one of my kids was going to school and one of the moms said, how do you get her to eat so well? And it just meant like, because I'd always have some carrot sticks in there and some celery sticks, maybe a little dip, but there was always a cookie or chips or something as well. Like, don't make a big deal. Where when the child's at home with you before they're at school, you can control what goes into their mouth, but the minute they're out of your care full time, it's a free world and they're going to throw out if this to get those chips and to eat the bags of candy and to because it becomes such a special food. And I think just normalizing relationships with food helps.
For sure, for sure. Um, when going back to the whole topic of divorce and whatnot, in the issue of emotional eating, I know I see a lot of women who, when they're going through, well, and men too, when they're going through divorce and the stress of it, they self-medicate, and some of them do it with alcohol. Some of them do it with food, and neither way is a healthy way at the end of the day because you're using something external, obviously, to self-soothe and whatnot. What advice do you have on the topic of emotional eating?
Yeah, such a good question. I want to say first off that the society has deemed emotional eating as wrong and it's bad. We are all going to eat emotionally because you can't just pull up, to the table and like pull all the emotions out of your body. Like your emotions come to the table with you or so forth. So we have to take the pressure off of that. Okay, that's very important. The other thing I want to say is that I'm all about like feeling your feelings. So many of us have been taught that our feelings are not safe, or maybe our feelings were told to be unheard growing up. But our feelings are here, and they're here to speak to us. I always tell people that if you find that you're feeling the need to eat, and emotional eating, I'll change that compared to physical hunger. So physical hunger tends to come on slowly. We start to feel those hunger cues start to kick in. Emotional hunger is something quick, whether you've had a fight with your ex, whether he dropped the kids off late, like whatever it is, something happened that caused you to get really, really angry. And your body told you that I'm stressed and you need food, because food is a quick state change. That's just it. So one of the things that I always say is just to be able to start to, if it's not working for you, sometimes a cookie or a bowl of ice cream just does the job, and it's okay. Let's not make a big deal out of it. But if you're doing too much of it and it's not working for you, you have to start to own those feelings a little bit and take the time to slow yourself down and feel what you're feeling. Are you feeling anger? Are you feeling sadness? Are you feeling rage? Like, get those feelings out, whether you need to go and scream into a pillow, whether you need to, scream at the top of your lungs, or you pull out your journal and you start to write, or maybe you go and you go out for a walk, or you go and have a shower. These are types of things that you get to identify. What is it that I can do for me right now just to calm down? And I realize that as parents, as single mothers or fathers, whoever's watching this right now, we don't always have the ability to like leave our kids. But we have to be able to have some of those coping skills in our mind. Using your breath is a big deal, and its breath is always with us. We can always just, we can be in the most craziest space where there's yelling and screaming, and just to be able to just take a pause and take some slow breaths, it immediately changes your state change within a minute by taking some slow breaths. And that can be enough for you to be able to think up here in your head and go, okay, what do I really need? Because when you're in a state of stress and rage, you're not able to decide, do I really want to have this bowl of ice cream, or would I rather like to try and wait 5 or 10 or 15 minutes and see if this passes? But if you're in a state of stress, you can't find those answers. You have to focus on breathing first to slow that back down.
You have such great information. So how can listeners find you if they'd like to work with you?
Oh, thank you. Yeah, so my website is kimbasler.com. You can certainly check out me there. Kim Basler is my email, and I'm very social on both Instagram and Facebook. My Instagram is Kim Basler _ food freedom. Always here to help, and let's just keep talking about this so that we can support each other.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today. As I say, I love your message. So thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, ladies.
And thank you to our listeners for tuning in to another episode of The Dish on Divorce. I'm Leanne Townsend.
And I'm Jennifer Barkin.
And we'll see you next time.